Wait, who are you? This is restricted space. You aren't supposed to be here. Wait a minute. It's you guys. It's the Pokemon fans. Well, it's alright. You guys can stay. It's not a problem. What's up? Today we're going to talk about what the best Pokemon for completing every mainline Pokemon game specifically is. As that, I should think we should get started.
In Pokemon Red and Blue, there is one Pokemon that reigns supreme above all else, and that is Nidoking. This Pokemon is perfectly set up for you to even speedrun the game with, and that's all that comes with how versatile Nidoking is, and how easy it is to get one. Now see, once you start Pokemon Red and Blue, all you have to do is get your starter, and then head towards the Victory Road to the west of Viridian City, and in the grass here you can find loads of wild Nidorans. At this point, all you gotta do is catch one, and you have yourself the start of a journey with one of the strongest companions ever. You can use the Viridian Forest as the leveling ground for your Pokemon, specifically Nidoran at this point, and push Nidoran to the point of getting Double Kick, which is at level 25. Or you could just let it evolve into Nidorino without getting Double Kick first, which is fine as well. Also, against the first gym of Brock, you could really have the advantage of having, a Nidorino or Nidoran with Double Kick, which is just going to come in really handy and really well. And eventually, once you get through Mount Moon, you can instantly evolve it into Nidoking at that point, as you will basically have the, Moonstone at that point, so you can just do it right away. So that is also the advantage of Nidoking. It's essentially a fully evolved Pokemon before you can even reach the second gym, if you want to go there and evolve it straight away. If you decide to evolve it right away, of course, then that's something you can do, but you will lose out on some of those early moves in those kind of higher levels down when it's still a Nidorino and a Nidoran, right? But the reason it is so strong in Pokemon Red and Blue, as well as in the remakes Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green, is honestly because of how much Nidoking can do. I mean, have you guys seen the amount of different TMs on this thing you can put? You can give it Mega Kick or Mega Punch that you get from the guys outside the Mount Moon as you leave it. You can also give it Horn Drill, which it already also will learn from leveling up. You can give it Ice Beam or Blizzard, Hyper Beam. I mean, even Thunder or Thunderbolt is an option. I mean, and of course, we can't forget about Earthquake and even things like Fire Blast. And of course, my favorite, Surf. I mean, there's literally a massive amount of versatility that has got to make this probably the best and top pick of best Pokemon for completing the first Generation 1 games, including Fire Red and Leaf Green as well, as it just is an incredibly versatile Pokemon that's going to be really useful throughout your full journey across the board. However, Pokemon Gold and Silver offers a bit of a different situation here. Here you don't have many good options in the early routes, so you either have to wait for a long time to get some good encounters eventually, or you go for one of these starters as the best for completing the game with. See, the two options that you really have here is Totodile and Cyndaquil, as they're both insanely useful Pokemon for the journey ahead of you, as both are pretty strong and generally very, useful Pokemon. However, Cyndaquil takes the cake for the original Gold and Silver, whereas I think Totodile would take the cake for the remakes, but for the original Gold and Silver, for clearing the game, this has got to be the most effective Pokemon back then, and it made the most sense to take this guy. However, there is a Pokemon I've yet to bring up that I think might be the best choice in reality, and that is none else than Crobat. Yeah, Crobat is a fantastic choice. This thing is so fast, and luckily you can get a Zubat or a Golbat very early on, and you can find yourself a Zubat specifically, in particular, in the Dark Cave very early on in your journey, so you can have one very quickly. And yeah, sure, it might take some time to get Golbat, and it might take some time, to get that Zubat evolved into Golbat, and then eventually the Golbat evolved into a Crobat, but I think it's worth it because this thing is so useful. With a base stat total of 535 and the insane speed, you can sweep through pretty much anything with it. Of course, there are a few weaknesses, but it's nothing that a bit of grinding and extra speed can cover for. I mean, that's why the speed is useful, because if you can sweep through the enemies without even having to worry about getting hits, then who cares if you're weak against them? With it eventually, you also do get yourself a pretty good moveset, and it definitely should involve Wing Attack, and of course Toxic is also useful in there somewhere. Hidden Power Ground or Hidden Power, Fighting, also really good, and you can go for Screech, coming in very handy to lower the target's defense by those extra 2 stages.
Whoa. Before we continue, I have been informed, okay, that you have yet to subscribe to this channel and leave a like. What is this? What is wrong with you? How can you be like that? What do you think this guy's gonna think about it? What do you think Baby Yoda's gonna think about that? Because he's gonna be quite pissed off. So you better subscribe and leave a like, or else, he's gonna do some messed up stuff, and I'm part of the feds, so I'll come after you.
In Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, on the other hand, we have an interesting situation because we do have the remakes, where I would argue you have a bit of a different situation, but also a very similar situation as we have in the original games. But in the original Ruby and Sapphire, as well as Emerald, I think the best choice, hands down, has got to be none else than Swampert. Yes, choosing Mudkip early on is the best choice, hands down. No questions asked. You can use Mudkip and Swampert to complete the game without any major issues. And this all comes down to that dual typing. Having that water typing in the early stages of your journey is really useful against, somebody like Roxanne and whatnot, but also the ground typing is great once you reach people like Watson and stuff. Like that typing together, like the water ground, like that is just broken. In all fairness, it is really broken. So basically Swampert being there with you is more than enough. Having, muddy water, having earthquake, and the ability to also add in like loads of TMs as well as like giving it surf. I mean, I'm gonna be honest, like you got so many great stab moves you can give this thing. It's just like the strongest thing in the world, and you can complete the game without any hassle just using this thing in your team. So Pokemon Diamond and Pearl offer a challenge, which is you have no fire type, so what are you gonna do? Well, you can get the Chimchar at the beginning and use it throughout the game as you're completing it, because, well, it's the only fire type you will have on your hand throughout the games, to be fair, and its stats are actually all above average, with very wide of a move pool and great offensive stats, and actually a pretty high speed stat as well, with like a vast amount of TMs you can give to it and moves that can be just learned from leveling up as well. I think it's a great choice in reality. Another great choice, if we're not going for Chimchar, which is the obvious one, would also be something like Weasel, which actually also has very high attack and speed stat and actually a decent move pool. But I think overall though, Chimchar is probably the best one to go for completing the whole game, as it won't be able to, you won't be able to get any other fire types along your journey. And I mean, having Flame Wheel and Chimchar at like level 17 or something, and the option to, even give it Toxic and Bulk Up and, in terms of TMs later on, plus that fighting typing for like Stab, there's so many great fighting type moves you can have on this Pokemon. I think it's gonna get the job done, and you really might need that fire typing at some point. And honestly, it's better to just have that one Pokemon and sweep through with specifically Chimchar, eventually, Infernape. I think it might be the best choice in this case. And again, I don't know if you guys agree with that, but I do think Chimchar might be the best option. There probably are some other Pokemon you can use as well. I mean, for other purposes, but I think as one to complete the whole game with, that you can pretty much sweep through with, I think an Infernape that is properly set up can do all that work on its own. Pokemon Black and White and Generation 5 in general is an era of Pokemon that was quite different and unique, and as such, that choice for the best Pokemon to complete the game with is a bit stranger and more difficult, I would say, as you have a decent amount of options, but one that sticks out has got to be Darumaka, right? This Pokemon can be found in the early game with like a 40% chance of appearing in Route 4, with Scraggy, who also appears on Route 4, being a good choice as well. See, with Darumaka though, you have a Pokemon that can do well against all gyms except like Clay, who will basically whoop your booty. Its stats are great, with decent speed and a crazy high attack stat, and that can all be buffed up by, Hustle to allow for much stronger hits against every enemy. Now, Darumaka only ever really struggles, like I mentioned, against Clay, whereas like Burge and Alessa lose to Darumaka pretty easily. However, it does need Eviolite for both to make, basically sweep through them. As Darmanitan, it sweeps pretty much through all other gym leaders, like with Drayden and Iris, not like standing a chance against your Belly Drum. At the Elite Four, Darumaka can use Belly Drum to pretty much like sweep through, and clean up everyone. And as for Scraggy, which is the other option, however, this guy is also useful with especially Stab on like Feint Attack early on until you eventually get Brick Break at like level 20. And with Scraggy, you also have, a Pokemon that gives you, basically you can kind of get through all the gyms without too many issues, right? It can do a lot of work. However, I think the choice here is pretty much like you can pick either one of these two. They're both good, but I would say Darumaka or like Darmanitan, eventually are going to be across the board the better one to go for. Again, both are really good, but I do think these two Pokemon will be some of the best choices to complete your game with. Pokemon X and Y, Greninja. Alright, so Pokemon Sun and Moon offers a variety of interesting Pokemon.
Wait, is that all for X and Y?
Okay, yeah, let's talk about it. So for Pokemon X and Y, the most obvious choice, in my opinion, is Froakie and eventually Greninja if we were to choose a starter as the best Pokemon to complete the game with. However, there are other options as well, like for example Noivern with its insane speed and great overall special attack stats. Also, that flying dragon typing is pretty neat to have, barring the fact that you may have to face any sort of fairy type, which will literally spell doom for you, but getting one of these early on would not be too big of an issue, right? However, Greninja has a base stat total of 530, and the variety in its typing allows for it to have a kind of an interesting move pool, making it the Pokemon that would probably be the best to complete this game with. I mean, I'm not saying that it is like this is definitely the best like Pokemon to solo run with, so to say, but it is a useful Pokemon and it's definitely really strong across the board, I would argue. Sun and Moon offers a variety of interesting Pokemon from its early stages that you can choose from. I think out of all the games, this is the one that offers the most good choices. I mean, the starters are all great and you can choose from them if you want, but I think the Pokemon in the early routes are more than enough, I'd argue. See, Golisopod, for example, is a decent pick, for example, right, with Wimpod being very early in the game. This thing is both strong and has a unique typing and high stats that help it stand out amongst the crowd, as catching a Wimpod and evolving it into Golisopod at level 30 isn't much of a problem, though it may take some time. And yeah, you will have to like deal with the weaknesses to electricity, flying, and rock, etc., which are going to be an issue. However, you will then instead have a Pokemon at the end that has great, like really good stats and can do loads of things. It's got high defense with great physical power, and you can also pretty much cut down all your enemies at that point. Of course, you do have to basically nurture a Wimpod for quite a few levels first before you get your hands on a Golisopod, but in the end, it has great and like high attack stats, and it can just be really useful. However, there is another Sun and Moon Pokemon that is far more annoying, I'd argue, to actually get your hands on, but that is totally worth it, and that is Toxapex. See, getting a Marini to evolve at level 38 into a Toxapex is going to be quite a task, I'd say, but I would argue it is more than worth it. I mean, the Poison Water type Toxapex is just insane. This thing is like the best defensive Pokemon you will ever find. It's just so bulky, and showing a competitive, like, you know, shoving rather, a competitive moveset on there with like Scald for like the stab, Haze, and Recover, plus like Toxic Spikes or something, gives you a Pokemon that's just incredible across the board. Like, you will not regret taking this on your journey. Now, the problem, of course, is getting a Marini, but, you know, you can either go for that or a Wimpod, whatever you guys think is the best. Oh boy, hello Pokemon Sword and Shield, been a while. Well, honestly, with this game, I would argue it is a tad more difficult to choose something, as for the most part, Sword and Shield are some of the easiest games out of any Pokemon games to complete. With the ease of just doing max raid battles for EXP candies, it makes things a bit futile. But I mean, the strongest Pokemon still does exist there, though. Out of all of them, of course, Dragapult would be the best one. It's incredibly strong, but getting this Pokemon requires you to basically complete more than half the game first. So a better choice, I'd say, if we're gonna go for Pokemon early on, in this case, I think one of the best ones would actually just be your starter Pokemon being Scorbunny, and of course its final evolution Cinderace being the best part there. Cinderace is a powerhouse to use like playing through Sword and Shield. This thing has a unique move which is Pyro Burn, which has like 120 power and 90% accuracy, which of course that lack of 10% is an issue, but this thing comes in super handy and is incredibly strong. And overall, yes, you may run into trouble against like any water types, but that's really like somewhere early on against like Nessa, and everything past that point is honestly no issue whatsoever. There is better options, of course, if you don't want a starter. You know, like we could say, for example, you could go for the broken mess that is Galarian Darmanitan. I mean, holy crap. Yeah, it is a sword exclusive Pokemon and is available on Route 8, but holy moly, is this thing strong. However, yeah, like I said though, we can't really choose this one because it is an exclusive, so I'd say Cinderace takes the cake as it's the overall, probably strongest out of them all. Like, there are stronger Pokemon, but usually those are so further into the game that getting that Scorbunny and evolving it over time is probably the best choice and the strongest one, to be fair.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, those were the choices. Did you guys agree with them? If you didn't, then feel free to just in the comments down below, just go right ahead and tell me, what do you think is the best Pokemon to complete every game with? If you just disagree, that's totally fine. Just let me know down there. I'll see you next time.